to Cheyenne, Wyoming. We're hanging by the phone is someone who can attest personally to the fact that the song is absolutely correct, that I am tastefully tacky, or at least tacky. Will you settle for tacky?
No comment.
No comments. Okay, well, that's probably pretty good. Okay, Maureen Bader from Wyoming Liberty Group is on the line with us because it's a Thursday. And because you're here to follow up on something that Wyoming Liberty Group is doing, which I'm very proud of you guys. I love it when you do stuff like this. You're taking the initiative and poking a stick in some eyes before they even know that it's coming. It's not like somebody did something and you're poking them in the eye with a stick. It's you're doing it in advance so they don't do something. That's kind of a long, convoluted setup, but explain it.
That's right. So what we've decided to do here at the Wyoming Liberty Group as part of our government transparency campaign is send out to all candidates in the upcoming Wyoming state election, the Taxpayer Protection Pledge. And essentially what we're asking all candidates and all incumbents, because only half the Senate here in Wyoming runs again in the next election, the other half run in another 2 years. We're asking all of them to pledge to the people of Wyoming that they will oppose and vote against any and all efforts to increase or create new taxes.
Now, here's where I wonder, Maureen, if you guys are doing one thing in the right way. You see, normally when a politician writes something down, it's like 5,000 pages written and cross-referenced in some legalese kind of Latin that nobody could possibly understand unless they had a team of lawyers. But you guys actually wrote this thing on a 3x5 card, and it doesn't have a lot of words on it. In fact, there's a couple of big pictures on this little card. I pledge to the people of Wyoming that I will oppose and vote against all efforts to increase or create new taxes. That's it. They sign it. They're done. Now, I don't think they're going to understand it. It's not complicated enough.
Well, we try to keep things simple, and we want voters and potential voters to be thinking about this also, because what we are facing here in Wyoming right now is a big gap between government revenues and government spending. Because of course, as especially as people in Gillette, Wyoming know, we've really ridden this wave of big government on the back of a big windfall in mineral tax revenue. But of course, the price of oil is down, the price of natural gas, which is a bigger factor for the Wyoming budget, is down. The federal government war on coal is driving the coal industry into the ground. That has got big effects on the state government revenue, because about 70% of Wyoming government revenue comes from the minerals industry, and we know where that's going, and it's going south.
Right. Well, now, are you actually suggesting that during the boom times, government went kind of spend crazy?
They went kind of spend crazy, exactly, because, if they got it, they're going to spend it.
Of course they are.
Now, they didn't spend all of it, of course, because they did squirrel a bunch away. We've got the Permanent Wyoming Mineral Trust Fund and the Common School Land Holding Fund. Now, those are two examples of funds that are what we call inviolate.
Right.
That means the government just can't, the politicians and the bureaucrats just can't dig into it and take money out however they want. The only money that can be spent from those two accounts, there are a couple of these permanent accounts, but from those two in particular, is earnings on investments. So the treasurer takes those, he invests them, we get earnings, and the earnings have been were particularly good in 2015. They weren't so good in 2016, and this is a fiscal year also. We're not talking calendar year, of course.
Yeah,
and they're not expecting to be very good at all in the future.
Well, see, here's where Maureen is very tactful, and I'm not. See, she wouldn't say a word about me being tastefully tacky or tacky. Right now, she is accusing these people of not being very smart, but she hasn't said it. So let's take a look at what's happening here, Maureen. Revenue is down because the industries that support this state are under attack. The state that was going on wild spending sprees, the only thing we didn't have was an RV in the parking lot of every government official. They just went wild on spending sprees. But now not only is revenue slowing down, but foreclosures on homes are up and people are packing up and leaving the state, or there's a high unemployment rate. I mean, both is happening at the same time. Are you actually suggesting that there are some in government that thinks, what a perfect time to raise taxes?
Go figure, huh?
Yeah.
Because, gee, we've got all the, I hear this in committee meetings and I just cringe. Gee, we've got all these great government services that people want. Yes, they want them because they are not paying for them.
Yeah.
But no one has ever asked, hey, would you actually be willing to use your own money to pay for these services? Because you can bet a lot of times, people are going to say, there's just no way. I'm not going to pay for that. Look, you want to give it to me for free? No problem.
Right.
Look at the school districts, for instance. You want to get a free swimming pool in your school? You want to get a free planetarium in your school? You want to get a free bike, bunch of bike lanes all over the place? Sure, why not? Hey, it's not my money. But but when it comes time to actually you put your own money on the line to pay for a swimming pool at the school or these bike paths or these things, people are going to say, oh, no, wait a minute, no way. I need my money to pay my bills. I'm not going to pay for this stuff that you guys want.
Well, now, I don't know about your parents, but I distinctly remember my parents when I said that I wanted something and my parents were either could not afford it or did not want to put the money out even though they could afford it. They had one word, 2 letters that they said to me, which was no. But my mom would always follow it up with, but someday when you get your own job and you're making your own money, you can decide if you want to spend it on stuff like that or not. Now, how come that doesn't happen at these meetings?
That's a really good question, and that's, I think, the underlying problem there is that a lot of times politicians aren't looking at what their other options are. Yeah. Like, for instance, spend less. This is what they're gonna have to do. Now, in fairness, the people who are on the Revenue Committee now, for the most part, have all said, no, I will not raise taxes.
Okay.
So, but remember that we have an election here, and after that election, the members of that committee are going to change.
Yeah.
And that's why we've come out with this pledge, because what we want to do, actually, even before the primaries here in Wyoming, because as most people know, the Republican primary is really the election. So we're trying to get everybody on record before the primary saying that they're not going to raise taxes, because when that committee changes, we want to be able to hold people accountable for what they said they were going to do before the election. Because as we know, and I know you'll put this in a much more direct way than me, a lot of times politicians say one thing to get elected, and after they're elected, suddenly, all those things that they said, they forgot.
Yeah. I put more things in more of a direct way than you, Maureen, because I'm a jerk, so I'm allowed to, I get paid to be a jerk, so I can go ahead and do stuff like that. Has there been anything from the governor on this? I mean, has he wanted to raise taxes at all?
No, he has not come out. The only thing he ever talks about is expanding Medicaid, because he figures that they're going to, supposedly, although it's actually very questionable, that they're going to get federal money that they can use then to offset some of the state spending, and so that they could have all this other dollars available to spend on other things. So it's not about reducing spending; it's about trying to get more money from the federal government. So this is a very, very short-term way of looking at this particular problem, because as we can see in other states, especially on the Medicaid side, the cost of the program just goes up. I mean, any amount that you might have gotten extra from the federal government, it really isn't going to help you in the long term.
What about, and we had talked about this on another episode here, if you want to call it, on this show. There was an article that I read that said the state was considering giving the power to some local governments to raise taxes locally.
Yeah, so the Revenue Committee had discussed a number of things, a number of different taxing options, and one of those had to do with giving the ability for local governments to tax their own citizens more. I mean, the philosophy there, and it's actually true, the government is most accountable when it only spends the money that it actually raises locally. And that's really what is behind the big problem that we have with government now, because they've got all kinds of money that they're getting or were getting from the minerals industry that they were spending on somebody else. So somebody else being the voters that would vote them back into office. And so you can see there what happens when you've got this situation where the politicians themselves are not voting for the taxes to pay for the things they want to spend on.
Yeah.
So what they were saying is that, okay, well, what the local government, we can give them the option then to put the sales tax on food locally. But, I mean, it's pretty obvious. And actually, Roy Edwards, who's a legislator from Gillette, and a very sensible person, I might say, just said what everybody was thinking. Well, wait a second, I mean, if one locality puts a sales tax on food in their grocery stores, then you know what people are going to do?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to go to some town that doesn't have a
in
sales
the next
tax.
town over. So is there any chance of sending this pledge out to local politicians?
Well, that would be a good next step also. Right now we're focusing on
Right.
the state government, but certainly the local politicians, I mean, excuse me, we had a situation this week here in Cheyenne where the local government gave all the city workers a 2.5% raise on
Right.
Tuesday. And then on Thursday they said, oh, we don't have enough money to fill the pothole.
Oh, gee.